Bonjour tout le monde, welcome back to We in France. I'm Diane, and tell me, does size matter? Is bigger actually better? Well, if you've ever spent some time in France, you've definitely noticed that many things here are smaller than what we're used to in the United States. So I want to get right into a bunch of things in France that are without a doubt smaller than what we're used to back home in the United States. All right, number one, that's going to be the country itself. We'll just start with the big one, pun intended.
Bombastic side eye.
I can't resist a good pun, you know me. But the total landmass of France is a cozy 212,900 square miles. Now, the U.S., on the other hand, it sprawls across a whopping 3.8 million square miles. So that means more or less you could fit like 15 to 16 Frances comfortably within the borders of the US, depending on what source you're looking at. But don't worry, France absolutely makes up for its small size with a stunning diversity of landscapes, everything from rolling vineyards to dramatic mountain ranges and gorgeous coastlines. One of my favorite things, I'm biased, but I live closest to the Atlantic coast, the Ile de Ré, La Rochelle, all of those places, they're very close to my heart. But one of the pluses of living now in a small-ish country is that it's easy to get around. You can go on a road trip. They're not going to take days and days. Flights within France are maybe a few hours at most. Yeah, that's just something I love about living here. All right, number two, portion sizes. When you go out to eat in the US, American portions are pretty legendary. They even border on intimidating, I'd say, in a lot of cases. And a lot of times you don't even have time to enjoy all of the food because waiters are constantly checking on you, turning over the tables pretty quickly. And then if you're an employee who goes out to eat at a restaurant at work, you have to rush back to work. But in France, meals are a much more leisurely affair. You know, they're savored slowly, they're enjoyed, often with wine, yes, even when you have to go back to work. And the emphasis is on quality over quantity. Now, the portions here, they leave you satisfied, not stuffed. And although you can get a doggy bag in France, you really won't often have a need for one. Now, that said, if you go to a casual restaurant and not, one of the fancy Michelin stars kind of places in France, I've noticed that portions have been kind of getting bigger over the years that I've lived in France. I mean, maybe it's just my perception, but I feel like at chain restaurants here especially, portion sizes seem to be pretty substantial. And just a note on like what you actually eat here. In France, you're more likely to get like a perfectly cooked steak accompanied by a side of seasonal vegetables instead of like a plate overflowing with fries and onion rings. And I feel like your stomach and your waistline will thank you for that. So it's just a little bit different. And if you like Starbucks, like I do, there's just something comforting about Starbucks, something I grew up with. The venti size, the biggest one, it differs in France and other European countries. So short, tall, and grande, they're all the same. But that largest size, the venti, it's 4 ounces smaller in France. Comes in at 591 milliliters, which is 20 ounces. And in the US, it's 24 ounces. That cup is just a little bigger. All right, number three, parking spaces and parking garages. I did a whole driving video you can check out. It's true that American cities are built around cars. And in France, you'll see that charming old towns and streets, they are narrow and they are winding. And that could be logistically a bit challenging. And that's not all bad, Roads like this, they teach you how to be a more careful driver behind the wheel. And it also encourages walking, cycling, using public transportation, all of which contribute to a more sustainable and pedestrian-friendly environment. Now, if you're going to be driving in France on your next trip, I definitely want you to check out Trippiamo. They'll show you the ropes. It is so important to be knowledgeable and actually confident as well behind the wheel. So one, you don't stress, but also practically so you can avoid fines, accidents, just everything that comes with being unprepared. So Trippiamo offers affordable must-have online guides and videos. They're certified by driving schools in France, and they teach overseas travelers how to drive in France like a local. So I'd love for you to check them out via the link below. They'll get you squared away. And that's all I'll say about that. When it is time to park, definitely pay attention because parking spaces are often a little narrower than what we might be used to back home. And parking garages, they have spaces that are a tight squeeze. So watch out for the parking garages. And that brings me to what I just mentioned. Number 4, cars. Vehicles themselves in the US, we have cars that are known for their size, for their horsepower. Like bigger is better when it comes to cars, right? Everyone loves their big pickup trucks, their big SUVs. And in France, cars tend to be smaller. And a huge reason for that is the cost of gas. As I'm making this video, I just checked. A liter of regular unleaded near me is €1.92. And that comes out when you do the calculation with today's exchange rate, $7.87 per gallon. And gas is not even at its highest right now. So depending on where you live, that might seem pretty high. Now in France, there are a lot of compact, electric, fuel-efficient options, and they are perfect for navigating those tight streets, narrow parking spots. I personally feel practicality is the way to go. We have a small car, not tiny, but not a big one either. And just to clarify, you can absolutely find giant sedans, big SUVs. You'll find people driving big Range Rovers, but the majority of people in France, they don't drive those big vehicles. All right, 5. The people. Yes, the United States ranks 10th as the most obese country in the world. And actually, according to 2017-2018 data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, nearly 1 in 3 U.S. adults is overweight, and more than 2 in 5 have obesity, 42.4%. And about 1 in 11 U.S. adults has severe obesity. That comes out to 9.2%. And that is shocking to me. That is sad. France, on the other hand, they come in at 87th worldwide in terms of obesity. The prevalence of obesity among the French population in 2020 was 17%. And the prevalence actually of overweight and obesity among the French population in 2020 is 47%. And this comes from Statista. I'll link the link down below if you want to check this out for yourself. The prevalence of morbid obesity among the French in 2020 was only 2%. And in case you're wondering, according to the WHO, worldwide obesity has more than doubled since 1990, and adolescent obesity has quadrupled. All right, number 6, salaries. Now, salaries in the US, they tend to be higher in France for the same type of work. And there are a lot of reasons why this is the case. One of those reasons being the amount of social charges an employer pays on the back end. That gets really complicated. It looks like alphabet soup, a lot of calculations. I'll link a link down below if you want to go deep into that. But on the flip side, the cost of healthcare is more affordable in France. It's not free, but it's more affordable. And there's also not as much of a keeping up with the Joneses mentality in France. Credit cards aren't really a thing here. Debit cards, yes, but credit cards in the American sense don't really exist as much. French people, they don't carry as much personal debt as Americans, and they tend to live more within their means. So yeah, salaries might be lower here, but you know what's higher? The number of vacation days. Most French people, they're not crazy high earners, but they do have more leisure time to enjoy their lives. And for full-time employees, 5 weeks is the norm, plus holidays, and that's paid. All right, number 7, package sizes of grocery items. So you'll notice that bags and packages of containers of like chips and all that tend to be on the smaller side. So it can be tricky if you're having a big party to find like a Super Bowl Sunday size of chips, or even a gallon of milk. If you have a bunch of kids or you just like milk, you're not going to find the equivalent of a gallon size of milk. And it could be a headache having to buy a bunch of smaller containers, like 6 little bags of chips just to get through your party, and even wasteful, right? All that packaging. And one reason for this, at least for the snack food, culturally speaking, is because things like pretzels and like cheese puffs, they're for apéro, which is kind of like a French happy hour. That's short for apéritif, by the way. So you'll see chips, crackers, nuts, olives for apéro in little bowls, not Super Bowl Sunday size bowls. They're small. And by the way, if you want to stock up on some of my favorite French snacks, I'll link down below exactly where to buy them in the US so you can get your hands on all those goodies. And with that, I'm going to wrap up my list of 7 things that are smaller in France. I want to hear from you below. I purposely left off a few things because I know someone's going to bring them up in the comments, so let me know what I missed. And if you are planning on visiting France soon and you want to be prepared, check out my guide. It's an e-guide titled 75 Beginner France Travel Tips for a Standout Trip. It has all kinds of practical information and advice on money, transport, culture, all those kinds of things. And it's a great way to support my channel so I could keep on making free content for you guys. I have no plans of ever putting my content behind a paywall, a membership site, a Patreon. It's all free. So if you enjoy what I do, that's a way to let me know by supporting me and buying my guide. So yeah, with that, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you again for being here, for your support, for watching, for commenting, all that. I really do appreciate it. See you back here on We in France soon. Salut!